A violent storm hangs over the remote Thai islands. In the mangroves, a vending machine lies buried in mud, while an overturned car rests high in a palm tree, hinting that the recent weather moved things far larger than anyone expects. At the waterfront, Max pushes her reluctant best friend Sarah into a last-minute boat trip. Their reservation was never confirmed, but Max charms the operator into providing another vessel for Sarah, James, Adrian, Greg, and herself. Once aboard, the group forgets every concern. They drink, dance, swim, and take photographs beneath the tropical sun, treating the catamaran like a private party and paying almost no attention to basic safety. The mood changes when Max announces a possible job in Los Angeles and assumes Sarah will follow. They had planned to move to New York together, so Sarah realizes Max has again made a major decision without consulting her. Sarah goes snorkeling alone while the others keep partying. Without checking the water, they move the boat. When Sarah surfaces, the catamaran is disappearing, and nobody notices her screaming and waving in open water. Before they realize their mistake, Sarah becomes surrounded by jellyfish. The swarm repeatedly stings her as she struggles to stay afloat, turning the group's carelessness into a painful and potentially deadly emergency. The friends finally return and pull Sarah aboard. She is shaking, covered in stings, and furious. Instead of accepting full responsibility, Max and Adrian offer excuses, confirming that nobody treated Sarah's safety seriously. At dinner, Sarah condemns their lack of basic precautions. Max reacts as though the criticism is a personal attack, exposing the real conflict between them. Max expects loyalty while dismissing Sarah whenever her feelings become inconvenient. Later, the women apologize. Sarah explains that the islands remind her of her late father, who explored local caves. Max turns the memory into a new adventure and suggests visiting a cave system called Devil's Mouth. On the beach, the group finds an animal carcass covered in severe bite wounds. They treat it as a strange curiosity rather than evidence of a nearby predator and continue planning the cave trip. The next morning, the friends travel deeper into the islands and meet their guide. What? He provides helmets, lights, and flotation equipment, but the group jokes through his safety briefing. What recommends a safer green path because early monsoon flooding has made conditions unpredictable. Max demands the more exciting red path and pressures him until he agrees, despite clearly warning that it is dangerous. Near the entrance, Sarah meets an experienced diver who confirms the caves were recently closed after storm surge. He tells her to look down and focus if fear takes over, then enters ahead of them. The group swims through dark passages and submerged tunnels. Sarah panics after feeling something move near her, but what dismisses it as an eel. He then identifies the blue tunnel as their route back toward the ocean. They enter Devil's Mouth, a chamber whose jagged formations resemble enormous teeth. Their shouting disturbs a colony of bats, and what again warns them to respect the cave. In the skeleton cave, what shows them human remains from an ancient disaster. The friends joke, pose for photographs, and damage the fragile limestone, creating cracks that appear meaningless now but will later become essential. The group discovers a chamber filled with dead saltwater fish. What realizes storm surge has pushed ocean water deep into the cave system, abandons the planned route, and orders everyone to leave immediately. During the retreat, Sarah learns Max secretly paid what to watch her. She resents being treated as helpless. Then something brushes her fin again while Max carves a friendship symbol into the wall. Adrian slips and cuts her leg on sharp rock. Blood spreads into the water, triggering Greg's severe panic response and leaving him unable to breathe or think clearly inside the flooded cave. The others calm Greg by repeating his mantra. A glowing chamber briefly restores their excitement, but what urges them onward while Adrienne's injury worsens and forces the group to support her. Ahead, they find the experienced diver gravely injured and bleeding. His final warning includes the Thai word for shark, and what realizes a large predator entered the cave during the storm surge. The bull shark finally appears beneath the dark water. What orders everyone to stop splashing and remain quiet, because blood, noise, and movement can draw it toward every crossing between the rocky ledges. What prepares to lead them across one flooded section? Max demands a clearer plan while Greg freezes and hyperventilates. The group steadies him with humor and his mantra until he forces himself back into the water. During the crossing, the shark attacks and drags Greg beneath the surface. Adrian watches helplessly as he disappears, confirming that the predator can reach them throughout the narrow cave system. Sarah, Max, James, and Adrian reach a rocky ledge, but Adrian has been badly torn during the escape. She is bleeding heavily, barely mobile, and impossible to move without attracting the shark again. Sarah identifies the animal as a bull shark, capable of surviving in fresh and mixed water. With what missing, the survivors debate waiting, entering narrow tunnels, or risking the route toward the ocean outlet. A distant figure attempts another crossing, briefly suggesting what escaped. The shark attacks immediately, destroying their hope that the guide reached safety or summoned help. They must now escape entirely on their own. Max takes the cave map and argues for an interior route, while Sarah favors the ocean outlet. Their dispute ends when a shark lunges onto the ledge and grabs Adrian, forcing Sarah and James to pull her back. The shark breaks free during the next escape attempt. Adrian cannot move quickly enough, and the animal kills her before the others can intervene. Sarah, Max, and James are forced deeper into the cave. Sarah and Max continue fighting over the route. Although James initially follows Sarah, she refuses to split the group and accepts Max's map path through the honeycomb tunnels. The tunnel becomes almost too narrow to cross. Exhausted, James admits he wasted much of his life. Then distant bird sounds give them hope that daylight is close, even as the unstable passage begins collapsing. Near an apparent exit, the cave floor collapses beneath Max. Sarah and James pull her away from the drop, but the route becomes unusable, costing them strength and proving the cave itself is failing. Sarah finds another submerged path containing small pockets of trapped air. Taking control, she leads Max and James through repeated underwater sections, never knowing how far the next breathing space will be. Eventually, the air pockets disappear. James runs out of breath and is lost in the tunnel. Max tries to turn back, but Sarah forces her forward, knowing a rescue attempt would kill them both. After another close encounter, Sarah and Max climb onto rock and recognize familiar formations. The tunnels have looped them back to Devil's Mouth, near the Blue Tunnel and the route Sarah wanted from the beginning. Sarah discards unnecessary supplies and commits to the ocean outlet. Max is shattered by James's death and resists moving, but the shark's return leaves them no choice except to enter the final route. Inside the Blue Tunnel, they use their headlamps sparingly and freeze whenever the shark passes nearby. Reaching home requires them to swim silently through the predator's hunting ground. When a shark spots them, Sarah creates noise and raises a bright emergency light, deliberately becoming the visible target. The animal turns toward her, giving the injured Max a brief chance to escape. Sarah survives the diversion and reunites with Max. Both are injured and exhausted, but they continue together. Max abandons her Los Angeles dream, and Sarah says survival will let them choose a different future. They reach an opening high above exposed rocks, but the tide is low and their rope is too short. Sarah considers descending alone, while Max panics at being abandoned before agreeing to attempt the climb. Sarah hauls Max upward, and the dangerous plan nearly works. Just before Max reaches safety, the shark attacks from below, destroying their progress and throwing both women back into the flooded cave. Back in the skeleton cave, Sarah remembers how easily the limestone cracked earlier. She realizes the unstable ceiling can become a weapon and prepares to lure the shark beneath its weakest section. Sarah hangs above the water as bait, repeatedly drawing the charging shark into position. After several attacks, the weakened chamber collapses, sending massive rocks into the water and burying the predator. Sarah awakens amid the flooded debris and follows daylight and bird sounds through the rocks. Bleeding and exhausted, she reaches an exterior ledge alone. Max's fate remains unclear as Sarah screams with grief, relief, and triumph.